This is the fourth video in a series of 4 on world building. All 4 of these videos have applied mostly to how world building relates to our writing, but this one especially will. If you're world building for fun, you can skip it. Only writers left in the room? Good. Stop making random maps. Normally, I don't like to be that blunt, but this is a particular pet peeve of mine, and today we're going to talk about it. There are a ton of resources online for making random maps, quite good ones, in fact. These can be especially useful for role-playing games where a dungeon master wants to make their version of Forgotten Realms or Fantasyland, but doesn't want to get bogged down in continents and geography. And they can be fun for world builders, for people who partake in the hobby because they like making worlds as opposed to writing books. But if you're a writer, particularly a new writer, I want you to stop using them. No more web generators, no more spilling beans out onto a piece of paper and tracing them. When you set out to make a world, be it an epic fantasy wonderland, a space opera galaxy, or a pastoral town to battle pocket monsters in, you need to make it with a purpose. And that purpose is your story. Alright, so that makes an awesome fortune cookie, but what does it actually mean? Well, it can mean different things to different stories. Maybe you want a map that highlights some tension in your work. This is a map I made for a novella I'm writing. I didn't need to make a map for this town, but I wanted to solidify the geography in my mind before I started writing. Notice how different the layout is in the top right corner as compared to the rest of the map? Think that might come up in the story? But there's more to it than highlighting tensions between different cultural or political groups. A purpose-built map can support the reasoning behind your lore, behind your backstory. Remember the map from Avatar? Gee, the Fire Nation sure doesn't have a lot of land, and boy, the Earth Kingdom looks vast and difficult to defend, all relevant to the events of the show. But to me, it goes even deeper than that. A lot of us, particularly fantasy writers, love writing the there and back again style stories. Tolkien-esque adventures where heroes have to travel to a place and do a thing, getting in all kinds of messy situations along the way. When writing this kind of story, a lot of us start with a map and figure out the route the heroes are going to take to Mount Doom or whatever. This can be a really useful technique if you need inspiration or if you're trying to find a structure for the story, but it can also be quite limiting. Maybe what the story really needs at that moment is a breather episode set in a spa town or a rundown slum full of bad guys that are going to oppose our heroes. You need to be free to pull that town out of thin air and put it down on the map wherever the story demands it. This is what we talked about back in episode 1 of this series. Maps don't matter. Geography doesn't matter. The story is what matters. So who cares if this is a barren plain without a ready source of water, or some commodity crop the local economy is built around? If you need a town in the middle of nowhere to serve the story, build it. You can always figure out some justification for it being there later. The map doesn't drive the story drives the map. Remember, as writers, at the end of the day, the story is really the only thing that matters. You can have the coolest character or the most interesting lore or the coolest environment, and no one is going to care if the story as a whole doesn't work. This is why random maps are largely antithetical to our purposes. If you're just world building for fun, knock yourself out. Take pictures of the clouds and retrofit them into an archipelago empire. Turn rust patterns on fire hydrants into fallen elven kingdoms. But if you're a writer and you're serious about telling the best story possible, you need to construct your maps with the story in mind as the driving factor. Make your maps matter to the story, not itself. I'm Michael Aguero. Thanks for watching. If you want to support the channel, you can do so by buying my stories on Google Play. I make these videos as advertising for my writing. So if you want me to keep making them, buy my books. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.